All right, y'all. So today, this particular session, we're going to talk about graduate school 101. So the first thing I'm going to tell you all, do not go to graduate school just to go because you ain't got anything else to do. It is not worth going into that amount of debt or going into getting a master's degree that might not be beneficial for you. If you don't have any plans post-graduation, it's okay for you to just go, get a full-time job. I call it a gap year. So take you a year or two, just figure it out, take your time, understand, get to know who you are as a person and what you really want to pursue, and then go from there. These are some things I want you to think about as it relates to graduate school. Are you ready to commit? Graduate school requires another level of commitment that I'm not sure undergraduate education requires. The first thing, it requires more time, because that means you're going to be doing a lot of more reading. Now you're taking less classes, but the workload is increased. A lot of readings, a lot of papers. Graduate education costs a lot more money than undergrad. I don't know why they be charging like premium tuition, but they do. So you might want to consider, is this something I want to pay for? It requires energy. And so typically a lot of your undergraduate courses are like lecture based. Graduate courses, for the most part, unless you're like online, are discussion based. So, again, just please consider your options carefully. And so here's some questions I like to pose to all of my graduate students. I even pose these questions to students that apply to the programs that I work in. So what are your career plans, and how might this degree impact your career plans? Right? Is this going to help with your career plans, or is it like an added bonus? Is it a requirement? Will this graduate degree enhance or narrow my employment perspective? Are you looking at jobs, and the jobs are requiring you to have a master's degree? If that's the case, or a PhD, then you want to apply. Right? You want to apply for graduate school because you know that you can't get this type of job without that degree. A really vital question that people don't think about: do I need to attend graduate school right away? And so the right decision at the wrong time is still the wrong decision. And so graduate school can be for you, but it might not be right now. So case in point, a lot of people rush and get MBAs. Well, an MBA is designed for people who already have experience in business. And so you might want to consider working in the field of business first, and then going back to get your MBA, because there are also companies that'll pay for you to get your MBA. And then also, do you know exactly what discipline you want to study? So the whole master's degree, i.e. the word master's, meaning you're going to master a specific discipline. So my master's is in sports science with a concentration in sport injury management. And so you're going to get very specific with your career field. Also think about, hey, how do I do in school? Do I even like school? Like, what does my GPA say, even though GPA is subjective for the most part? Do I enjoy going to school, or is it something else I want to do? Are you going to have to stop at just the master's, or are you going to have to go and get a terminal degree? Location matters. So wherever you choose to go, you want to be in an environment that's healthy and supportive of you. I don't like cold weather, so I'm not trying to be nowhere where it's going to be cold. And so that's something that you want to think about. And then the most important question: how are you going to afford it? Like, where are you going to get money from? So like undergraduate degrees, you can just find scholarship everywhere. That's not the case for graduate degrees. And we're going to talk about the different funding options. So what should you be looking for in a program? Number one, you should be looking at their curriculum. What do I mean? Look at the classes that you have to take, and I want you to make a decision. Are these classes going to get me to what I need to be? So for an example, let's say a student wants to do an MBA, but then they want to go work in finance. They need to go look at an MBA program that offers finance courses. You want to look at the faculty. What is the faculty's experience? Is the faculty strictly on research? Do the faculty have experience in the field? Do the faculty look like you? You don't want to go to a program where there's no representation for you. And so that's something you want to think about. Program reputation. And when I say program reputation, you want to think about, okay, where are the alums of this program going to work? So don't go to a program that's only producing faculty members, but you want to go work in another field. That don't make sense, because that program is tailored towards producing faculty members, or tailored towards producing people on Wall Street. And so you want to say, okay, hey, what's my end goal, as Duncan talked about, and how do I work backwards to get to that particular end goal? How much does it cost? So a lot of these schools are private, some of them are public. So is this worth my investment? I tell education students all the time, you might not want to pay $50,000 for a master's in education when you're not going to get that big of a pay raise? Is that degree worth the pay raise, or is that degree worth the value? Things you want to kind of look at on the campus facilities. And so is there a space for graduate students? What do the library look like? Because you're going to spend a lot of time on library. Housing facilities, do they have graduate housing, or are you going to have to get an apartment? What do their career services look like? So a lot of these universities, especially these large universities, their career services is really only for undergraduate students. And so you want to make sure that they have some type of graduate student support to help you get a job. And then geographic location. You know, I'm not sure about y'all, but I don't want to be in North Dakota in the middle of nowhere. And so as a Black person, I'm not trying to be in Utah. However, you might want to think, okay, I want to be in an urban environment. I want to be in a rural environment. I want to be close to home, not close to home. I want to be in a program, you know, adjacent to a big city, you know, metropolitan area. So these are things that I want you all to consider when you're looking at a program. Next, let's talk about the admissions process. And so these are some of the things that you need in regards to applying for graduate school. If it has an asterisk by it, that means all schools don't require it. So admissions test, so your GRE, your GMAT, LSAT, PCAT, MCAT, all of those, you know, dentistry tests, all of those standardized admissions tests, they're required for some programs. So a lot of programs right now are not requiring a GRE and a GMAT, so take advantage of that. They want you to submit a resume. So as a faculty member, that's important to us because we look at that. We're going to talk about your statement of intent or your personal statement. This is your essay that you're going to write to talk about your experiences and talk about why you want to be in the program and your future goals. Typically, you're going to have to have 3 letters of recommendation. Some programs require an interview with, you know, they want to get to know you, and then everybody requires your transcripts. So you're going to have to send unofficial transcripts first, and then you have to send your official transcripts prior to the first day of class. Now, let me tell you something about graduate education that's different from undergraduate education. Undergraduate education goes through the Office of Admissions, meaning there's a committee, admissions committee, that looks at your undergraduate applications. For graduate programs, the faculty, we are your admissions committee. And so literally, I'm a professor at Auburn University. We just finished our fall enrollment. And so what we did, we literally had a meeting, me and the other 2, it was 3 of us total. The other 2 faculty members, we sat down and we went through every student's application. We looked at their resume, we looked at their personal statement, and we read their letters of recommendations. And that allowed us to get an inside look at the students. And we discussed it. We had an open conversation. What do you think about this student? You know, could we admit this student? Could we not admit this student? So it's a very intimate process with graduate applications in regarding you being accepted for the most case. And so let's talk about your admissions test. All of these are pretty much standard. Your standardized admissions test. My recommendation, if you know the school that you want to go to requires you to take an admissions test, I highly recommend you invest in a prep course. Okay, so I use this analogy. You would not go buy a calculus workbook to learn how to do calculus, right? You would actually get a tutor or a teacher. So why do we think we can go get a GRE workbook to master the GRE? No, you need somebody to actually walk you through the test, give you the tools and the tips. And so those prep courses typically range from $500 to $1,000. And some of them actually come with scholarships. I would highly encourage, if you know that program requires it and you want to get quote unquote tuition assistance, a lot of schools will say, hey, we offer some scholarships, but you have to have this score on a standardized test. And so that's important. You want to make that investment now. And you really should start taking these tests your junior year, so that way you can have time to study. So again, you want to try to invest in a prep course. All right, moving on to the second piece, your personal statement. There are 2 types of personal statements. This is the essay that you're going to write. The first personal statement is just a general comprehensive statement. And so they're not going to give you a prompt. They're not going to pose a question. You're just going to write an essay talking about your experiences. So here's how I want you to write your essay. Number 1, I want you to write your essay and include your background experiences. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you like? Okay. The second paragraph needs to talk about your experiences. And so what are some of the experiences you had in college? Because you're telling a story about who you are. And it should be a comprehensive story. The next paragraph should talk about why you want to be in the program. So why did you choose Auburn University Higher Education Master's Program? And then what are your future goals? So that to me is a standard formula for, here's the introduction. Here's who I am. I'm from this city. I'm passionate about these things. Then the next paragraph, I'm a current student or a recent graduate of this school. During my time here, I majored in this and I was involved in these activities. And again, if you want to provide examples to what you're trying to prove, go ahead and provide examples. Now, some schools are going to ask you to respond to a question. Those are my favorite because that's easy. You're just going to write an essay answering the question. And so again, these are the things I'm talking about as it relates to your personal statement. Why graduate school? Make sure you answer that question. Is it going to enhance your career trajectory? Speak on the specific study, the research that you want to do, or the area that you want to major in. Address your future and current goals again. What special things you've done to help you get to this point. And so tell that story. And then a quick tip here, if you've done your research, I would highly encourage you to name drop faculty members and say like, hey, I see Dr. T is a faculty member here and he researches X, Y, and Z. I would love to work with him. Now imagine how that makes me feel when I read your personal statement. Like, oh, this student want to work with me. Okay, they get brownie points. So that's something I would highly encourage you all to do, but that requires you to, look on the faculty web pages, the university websites, and see what the faculty are actually doing. But this is a way for you to tell your story outside of your resume. Letters of recommendation. So I typically ask students or recommend that you get 3 types of letters of recommendation. You should get one letter that speaks to who you are as a person. So, your character. So that can be a site supervisor, your advisor, your pastor, whoever it may be. The second one should speak to your work ethic. So if you've done work study, if you've had a part-time job, if you're in an organization, have somebody speak to your ability to complete tasks. And then the third one should be an academic one. And so have a professor that don't have a professor that you don't know, and have a professor that that you did good in a class. Write your letter of recommendation so they can speak to how you were able to turn in your work on time, how you were able to do assignments, and how you always overachieve. Now, worst case scenario, it's always good to have 2 professors write your letters of recommendation, like 2 academics and then a other. And so I typically tell students you want to give people 60 to 90 days to write your letter of recommendation if you want a good one, because these people are full-time employees. And so they have so much other stuff going on. Don't go to somebody and say, hey, I need a letter of recommendation, and it's due in a week. That's not fair to them. So give them ample amount of time. When I was applying for my PhD program, I started putting all my packages, my applications together in the summertime. So they had everything they needed in one email. I attached my personal statement to that email so they can read it and just kind of get some more context of what I was trying to do. And I attached my resume. So now I made it easier for them to write a recommendation. And so make sure that it is easier for them in the process. Next, we want to talk about getting the bag. Don't nobody want to go into debt with graduate education. And so here are a couple opportunities that you can ask about, particularly when you're looking for schools. So the first bullet talks about assistantships. So you want to make sure that there's a way for you to fund your education. There are typically 3 types of assistantships. You have teaching assistantships, research assistantships, and graduate assistantships. So if you're a teaching assistant, you're going to be expected to teach classes or either grade papers. If you're a research assistant, you're going to be expected to help faculty members work on research projects. If you're a graduate assistant, you're going to be doing like administrative tasks, like working in the Office of Student Affairs or working across, campus doing projects or doing planning or programs. And so all of them typically come with a full tuition waiver or some type of tuition discount, and then you're going to get paid as a part of that. Fellowships are different. Fellowships are like the scholarships of graduate school. And so fellowships just give you money based off of a program. And so in sum, you want to make the best decision you can in regards to graduate school.